Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. Hosted by me, Pasitawa Haufano, and my brother,
That's me, Kalolo Haufano.
welcome to the Zeducation Podcast.
Welcome to another Zeducation Podcast, where our mission is to unleash greatness for our learners. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is something that's been across our minds as we have talked to many businesses, big and small, and understanding and ascertaining some of their learning needs. And today we really want to focus on those that are small to medium-sized businesses that may not have the time and resource to effectively roll out a learning training plan and how to mitigate those risks and how to receive support from organizations like Zeducation when it comes to prioritizing a culture of learning.
Yeah, we've been in the game long enough, and we know that in the market, everyone is different in terms of their business. They're different in terms of their time, the budget that they have for training. But everyone cares about training their staff, and it's just a matter of how do we implement it based on our limitations or our resources. Because we work with a lot of clients, big clients, corporate in terms of size, medium-sized businesses and small. And you tend to find that the small to medium-sized businesses are the ones who miss out on funding because, the government funding eligibility or the minimum that you have to meet is 20 staff. And some businesses don't even have 20 staff. Or sometimes they have 20 staff or more, but time-wise, they can't afford to take them off because the business is so small, they need them working. So they can only afford some time, but not a lot of time. So anyway, this podcast is for those people, and we want to provide some practical solutions or some ideas on how they can still prioritize training and keep it going regardless of their limitations.
And before we get into the how on how we can support those that are small to medium size, is emphasizing this, that regardless of whether you're a big corporate, a medium size or a small business, the learning and skill importance, especially in this current climate with digital technology, is so crucial and prevalent to all sizes. It's not just particular to the big corporates. The only big differentiation is they have more resource to allocate to help solve those issues. So looking forward to sharing our three top tips to it.
Yeah, and it's definitely possible. That's the good news. And we're going to provide some tips and solutions on how you can do that practically. So don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. And we do know that everyone, like I said earlier, is that people understand the why behind training. They know it's important. They want to prioritize it, but it's just more the how, okay? Because, if you're a business and you've got people, training or upskilling and developing them should be an ongoing thing. It's like going to the gym, right? If you stop going to the gym, you get weaker, right? The muscles or the strengths get weaker over time. So consistency is key here. But what does consistency look like for your business versus another business, etc.? So let's get into it.
Yeah, so we are going to share three tips or hows using the letter C, in fact. So there are three C's, and we're going to start off with the first one, and that is critical skills gaps. Once you gain a desire as a business to want to cultivate a culture of learning in your business, you need to firstly understand what skills do your staff need to be upskilled on. So that may come in the form of the current skill levels and where they're at for your respective staff, and also matching that to the job requirements for them as they work in their current job. I think a big topic when it comes to skills in this current day and age is digital transformation, right? Too often, or actually often, I do come across a lot of businesses who are going through digital transformation. What they would typically have as business as usual for their staff, for example, in construction, they're now trying to implement technology to streamline efficiency and effectiveness when it comes to work. But as we know, with that skill, to use a platform to become much more efficient. It's the human and being able to use it. So the skill gap here is digital training and helping them understand what the new platform might look like, and how they can start transitioning from what they would use for paperwork to now using technology.
Yeah, and that's a great example of, a critical skill. And Kalolo talked about this common pattern or theme that we're seeing in the market now, is the digital transformation, especially with things like AI, or not even advanced like that. Maybe it's something like Microsoft Excel, or it might be a digital tool that's specific to that business. They might be filling out health and safety forms on their iPad or on their phones with their new software or platform that they're using. So digital skills is just one example of a critical skill. And I like that Kalolo's going to go through the 3 C's. And the first one is the critical skills gap. And it's not just about the gap. It's what are the critical skills that are critical to the success of your business. You can't afford to have a business without these skills, right? Digital is one example. Health and safety is one. That's an obvious one in terms of critical. So let's say that's the critical skill for your business, and you've identified what that is. And then Kaloro talked about the gap. So if we know this is the ideal skill that's critical, but where are our people in terms of that skill? What's the gap, right? Then you know what you're working with.
I'll give you an example. I sat down with a business who has a strong passion to wanting to upskill their staff. And the objective of this hui that I had with their operations manager, their HR, their L&D, was asking them what are the particular issues that you have out there on your frontline staff or in the frontline environment. I also encouraged him to allow me to go into the site and to actually see it in action. But the reason why I bring this up is because from that conversation, I was able to identify up to 10 issues or skills that are crucial and necessary for them to work effectively. And there are a lot of gaps from those 10 skills. And I remember vividly ending off the conversation by saying to them, well, actually, if we think about the time, the resource that's being wasted because of incorrect orders, returns, could you tell me right now, comfortably, that you're losing millions per year from this? And they both, without hesitation, said yes. So just notes that that with skill gaps, behind it all is productivity and making sure that you're also efficiency. At the end of the day, it's a business and they're wanting to focus on the bottom line and understanding how they can become much more productive. So I wanted to bring that up as an example is because it's as simple as us coming in, understanding what the skill gaps are by looking at the issues. And I would even take it further by saying, well, it'll be good to see personalized learning. So understanding where each individual is in that workplace and where their level is at, which is another topic of discussion that needs to happen as well.
I think that's a very important point that you brought up there, Kalolo. I just wanted to mention this before we move on to the next C because of time. Is in terms of, how do you know what skills are critical? How do you measure? What does critical look like? And Kalolo talked about, what are the skills that's going to give us or ROI in terms of, what skills are going to help us make more money as a business, but also what are the skills that's going to help us save money as a business or save more time or be more efficient. Those are your critical skills. So yeah, it might require a bit of self-assessment here, collaborating with other leaders within your own business because some of them work on the floor or with the people in the field. So it's good to consult them, or you might have an external person come in to help you with that. So that's how you can identify some of the critical skills, and that's what critical skills are. So what's the next C, Kalolo? After you've identified your critical skills and the gaps, what happens next?
Clear objectives. So that is setting goals and making plans as a business. And I'm talking about those that are at the top that own it or have a large influence, is setting clear objectives. So what defining clear and measurable outcomes for the upskilling, right, for your frontline staff. So what specific skills do you want your employees to acquire, right? You can look at all these issues, but pinpointing which ones are the key ones that you want to focus on. And what are the expected outcomes in terms of, say, productivity, safety, quality of work? I would even add on top of that, intrinsically making the individual themselves feel valued at the workplace. So, what are those objectives? Because once you set clear goals and understanding what the Northern Star is, now that you've identified the skill gaps, it makes it much more clearer to create that pathway to learning.
Yeah. Well, that's it turns this is what we've identified. This is why it's important in terms of the skill. And then how do we make that tangible? What do we do with that information? And so that's that's where the goal setting comes in, because it helps to make things a little bit more tangible in terms of, okay, cool, we know this is the skill. When do we need to upskill them by in terms of time? Is it realistic within our limitations or our time frame, 6 months, 3 months? What's a specific or realistic time to achieve or upskill them by? Like, that's the SMART goals, right? Creating smart objectives to help take the skill that you've identified and making it a little bit more tangible. And that's where it can help with the building of the program and the training and the plan around how you're going to roll it out type of thing.
Yeah. I also would even challenge businesses to focus on exactly how you're going to measure it, right? So say, for example, if you had an issue of wastage, right? You're a manufacturing plant and you have a lot of resources that are coming in order to produce a product, and you see that one of the pertinent issues in that is there is a lot of wastage. Measure it. So, for example, this is X amount of wastage, kilograms of wastage that we are having in a particular year or quarter. We want to reduce that by 20 or 30% after this program, because then now we have really strong key performance indicators to help us understand, well, actually, is this program working effectively? Because we're creating this particular module to help solve this skill gap in order to increase or decrease the wasted percentage of this. So it needs to be also very measurable but very specific. So I agree with you. SMART goals is very important. So are they specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely to the current context of that business?
Yeah, I love that. And again, just probably one more example, real quickly, is health and safety is the obvious one. So how do you turn that into a SMART objective? Specifically, what is it in health and safety that we need to train them on, and by when in terms of time, and how will we measure that? Is that going to be, there's going to be a reduce in reporting of near misses, or reduction in accidents being reported, etc. Right? So that's taking the skill that you've identified and making it a SMART objective. Now it's tangible. Cool. So that's the seed there in terms of clear objectives. So you go from critical skills, understanding the gap as well, and then creating clear objectives and making it tangible. Then what's the last C, Kalolo?
So capacity allocation. Once you understand and can identify the critical skills that you need to focus on with your staff, and then you set clear objectives, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, then you need to start to understand, okay, so how am I going to capacity resource this moving forward with making sure that this happens? So this comes in 3 ways. What is the time that you need in order to invest into this? What is the money or putia? And then last but not least is the support. Okay, what type of support do you need from an educational lens to ensure that experts can help you upskill your staff effectively?
So, like I said before, this is where it's when you look at it in terms of resources, time, money, and support, then it makes it a lot more flexible, or you could tailor it based on the needs of your business and resource limitations of your business. So, first one Kalolo talked about was time. Do we have the time? Can we fit in time? Or where do we fit in time to upskill our boys? We've got a 40-hour working week. Where do we fit the training in terms of time?
Can I just add something real quick on time?
Yeah.
It's really interesting because sometimes I'll go to businesses who are not really fully there around like that desire to upskill their staff, and they always go back to time. We can't afford to take these people off the floor. But it made me understand now, as we're going through the 3Cs, well, the question is, can you identify the skill gaps? Do you have clear objectives? I think those are the two key steps that they need to understand in order to start knowing why it's important that time is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, we can understand why they go down that route, because time is money. They'd rather use that time that they would be using for learning to work more hours and help the business make more money. But businesses need to realize that when you upskill your staff, they become more proficient, more productive, more effective as well. And therefore, based on the quality of skills, can generate more ROI for your business, rather than having to come back, fix mistakes, errors in that could have been improved or solved through training. So that's the perspective, the opportunity cost around there, and you got to think long term and the ROI as well. So you got to think that you got to play the long game. So that's time. Where do we fit in time? Got to make it happen, right? The second part Lolo talked about was money. Okay, do we have the money? You know, that's where you got to think about putting budget aside. Or can you go shopping if you're going to look for some external workshops or training providers to come in? How much do those trainings cost or those workshops cost? Or can we build it internally? And how much will that cost if we built our own programs, etc.? So, you know, that's what you got to think about: time and money, and then obviously the support. Who's going to deliver the programs? Who's going to help coordinate all of this training? Who's going to help communicate it, get the buy-in, get the support, get the enrollments? So those are things you have to think about. Who's going to teach the program, right? That's the support part.
Yeah, if I just go back to what you had referred to around capacity allocation, there is already going to be by default mandatory training that every staff member needs to do. If I focus on construction, for example, you know, you have your site safe passports that need to be renewed on a yearly basis. You come across a lot of businesses that are having their staff members go to Connexus, which is a charity that is focused on upskilling people in the workplace as well. So there are mandatory trainings that are needed in order to make sure that you abide to New Zealand law. However, on top of that, there's also the time and money invested towards upskilling your staff overall that are specific to the issues that are that relate to your workplace. And the government, for example, is mindful of that. In fact, there is government funding called Workplace Literacy and Numeracy. That we go around and we talk to organizations around saying, hey, you know what, in order to alleviate the pressures of time and resource, there is government funding for this, and we can help support you in that aspect. I'm mindful as well for those that are medium and small size businesses. They may not have that time and money, right? This helps alleviate a lot of that pressure.
Yeah, and as education, we're mindful of that. And you know, if money is the challenge, you know, there is funding out there that's potentially available for, and it depends, because there's government funding for specific skills. So you've probably identified a critical skill that you want to train or develop within your business or in terms of your people, but there might not be any corresponding funding from the government to help support that. And so you have to think about that. But I would recommend what Kalolo mentioned is, when it comes to money, ask yourself, can I get this funded without having to use my own money? If you can't, then you have to use your own money. But try and get some support. Reach out to training providers, people who are in this space, and ask them, can you deliver, and is there funding for it? You know? So those are the good questions to ask yourself, and to help. And don't forget to negotiate as well. Like say, hey, how much does it cost for a workshop? This much. Cool. If I put in this amount of staff or commit to these amount of workshops, like 3 or 4 workshops, can you give me a discount? Can we negotiate? So that's also another way around finding affordable training programs as well, and try not to overspend your budget. What about time, Kalolo? Is there anything you could talk about that if you've got businesses who might be struggling, because time, like you said, can be an issue?
I mean, I get it. I totally understand that when you're wanting to prioritize upskilling of your staff, you're going to have to take them out from work. You're going to still have to pay them while you train them. And, you know, they're off from the floor, right? And obviously they're not going to be contributing to productivity for a couple of hours. But that's why it's important to really understand and forecast what it looks like when there is a return on investment for you to do this. I'll give you an example. There are businesses that I talk to who are straight up and tell me, I can't afford to take out my staff to train them. There's just not enough time. Juxtapose that to many other businesses that I talk to who say, I can't afford not to train up my staff. They need to be upskilled into on these particular skill gaps. So it's more so, I guess, the lens as well in understanding why time is so crucial when it comes to upskilling.
Yeah. I mean, like, just like money, we talked about earlier, how you manage money can help you afford some of those training programs. How you manage those negotiations can help you afford some of those programs. But when it comes to time, it's also how you manage time so you can fit in time for training. So, don't just think about, cool, how long is this program going to take? How long are the workshops? You got to think about, cool, what do I need to change or move in terms of project? What staff, maybe instead of putting all 10 at once, maybe it's 5, break them into 2 small groups. 5 stay on, manage the work in the shift, or you've got 5 that's in the training, and then you rotate from there. So it's almost like playing a game and playing, the puzzle game here, but find something that works for your business. Tailor it based on the time that you can afford to give. Yes, we get it. Every business might struggle in terms of time and that, but hey, if it's important, like Alolo said earlier, you will make time. Okay.
Yeah, and make the most of opportunities for funding, right? Like, although that there is, say, particular thresholds of a minimum of 20 staff when it comes to tapping into workplace literacy funding through TEC, for example, there's still the ability to join up with other organizations who may have low numbers and to build a consortium in order for you to tap into that funding. When we talk and partner up with businesses, that is always the first topic of discussion is how can we tap into funding that is available to help you scale this within your business.
Cool. So let's talk about the last one in terms of support. So, we're still on the last C here, guys. So that's a capacity allocation, and we're talking about resource capacity wise. So we talked about money, we talked about time, and the last one is support. Okay. So it's the other resource is people in terms of who are the stakeholders that's going to be involved to make this happen. You've got time to make it happen. You've got money to make it happen. But who's the support that's going to make it happen? Who's going to deliver the training workshops? Who's going to help coordinate this project or this training initiative to make sure that we've got the right people in the right programs at the right time, etc. Right? So you got to think about that aspect of it to make all of this happen as well. Okay, the support. Maybe it's an internal trainer, or maybe it's an external trainer. So you've got to look at those things, right? What's the ideal trainer? You might have Pacifica or Māori people, so you might want a training provider who is sensitive or who can tailor some of the training based on the culture of your people. So these are things you have to think about in terms of support, and it's not what a lot of people think about as well in terms of, time and money is an easy resource, but also the people, the support side of it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not just an easy thing to say, okay, I'm going to train them up on this topic. Let's go for gold. There's a science behind upskilling staff. So having specialists that come in is, if I think of medium and small businesses that would rather have an external come in and empathize and understand the needs of their business, then that is one route. There's also other routes, just like Pasi said, with trainer. You might have a person that's really good internally within your staff, train them up, or last but not least, hire someone to come in and to manage that for you. But if I see what we do at Education, we partner up with even big organizations that need us to come in. Say, for example, Fletcher's, that focus on particular audiences like Māori Pacifica who may have traumas education. And our focus is foundational upskilling. So one of our just causes is 1 out of 5 Kiwis have low literacy and numeracy. When it comes to particular industries like logistics, construction, infrastructure, and manufacturing, it's much more acute. So we come in with that lens of upskilling those that have don't even have the foundational skills. And there is a particular way to train up staff like that. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to specialists, education is one of them, and we're here to help.
Yeah. So it's very important to think about the support team that you want to help bring this training to life and to help you achieve the critical skills that you want to for your business through your people. So, the last thing you want is to bring a support team on board and all sorts of problems. The training's not being delivered. You've provided all this time, you've provided all this money, and the quality of the training and the support is not there. That's the last thing that you want to make everything fall apart. So think about that. So those are what I love is the 3 C's that Kalolo talk us through in terms of keeping it really simple. There's businesses out there who know it's important, but where do they start? How do they know the skills that they need? We talked about that, the critical skills, identifying that and the gap. And what do I do with that information? Turning it into clear objectives, making it a little bit more tangible. What's a training program, etc. The plan, right? Or how we're going to make it happen. And then the last C is making it happen. And that's around the capacity allocation. And Kalolo broke that down into 3 manageable resources to help it tailored and flexible to your business in terms of time, money, and the support team. So, yeah, hopefully you found this podcast episode very valuable, and to know that it's possible to fit in training, to prioritize training, regardless of the size of your business and regardless of the size of your resources as well.
And there we have it. Hopefully you're able to learn some crucial tips and tricks from this. All I would say is this is the stepping stone towards a long-term strategy for educational success for your business. And I know that as you focus on setting those clear objectives, identifying the skill gaps, and knowing how you're going to allocate resource to this, that's the beginning of many great things that will happen for you and your business. Thanks for tuning in.
Ka kite.